Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this Your Overseas Home webinar. My name is Christopher Nye, Senior Content Editor at Your Overseas Home and Property Guides. Now, today we're going to be discussing the Golden Three Experts, as we call them, because they're so important. The three experts you need to help you safely buy a property in Portugal. It's great to have you with us today, whether you're here live or catching up on demand. We are delighted to be able to help you realize your dream to own a property in lovely Portugal. Now, we have an hour ahead of us. We'll leave time at the end to put your questions to the speakers. Just type in the questions tab on the right side of your screen, and we'll get through as many questions as we can. If you do need a reminder about what we talk about today, and you will, I predict, because it's going to be packed with information, or you want to share this with family or friends, a replay will be available on the Your Overseas Home website to watch at your leisure, or to take with you when you go to Portugal on a viewing trip. Now, I'm delighted to be joined today by our three trusted Golden Three experts. First up, we're going to hear from Alistair Hudson from Smart Currency Exchange, who are the headline sponsors of today's webinar. And then we're going to hear from Fiona Thornton from Luximos on the Algarve. And then we're going to hear from Joanna Mestre from Match Law, who's going to take us through the legal process. So do please stick with us all the way through, and we'll keep you entertained, I'm sure, and do keep those questions coming. So, Alistair, could you give us a little introduction as to who you are and how Smart can help our customers?
Of course, yeah. Hi, everyone. So my name's Alistair. I'm the head of partnerships at Smart Currency Exchange. We're a business that was founded in 2004 to help people move money around the world. So we're a currency exchange specialist. We have really focused in on international property over the last 5 to 10 years, and our sole mission is to be the trusted voice in international payments. So anyone in that international property journey, whether you're right at the beginning, just starting to plan that journey, or perhaps you're only a few weeks away from having to send funds or complete, we're there to help with that journey. Not just in terms of actually moving the money from A to B. It's all about understanding the currency risk that you're exposed to, and providing a solution to make sure that it doesn't have a negative impact. And if any, I'm sure most of you on the video or the recording would have seen what happened to the exchange rates over the last couple of years. Sterling euro got as close to parity as I think it's ever has done in the last 20 years following the COVID pandemic crash, which would have had a huge impact on people's budgets in Europe. Fast forward a year and a half, and we're back up to 122, and then we're back to 116. So very, very volatile, not easy to follow or not easy to track, and that's why we're there. So the same as a financial advisor, a mortgage specialist, we are there as a currency specialist to make sure that you've got all the information you need to make an informed decision when you come to move your money overseas.
Okay, so explain your basic options when it comes to the contract transfers.
So there's two core functions we provide. So one is a standard same day transfer or next day transfer. It's very, very similar to how you would use a bank. If that's how you move money overseas, you transfer money into our client's account. We'll exchange it into euros, and then we'll pay it out to an account that you specify. So it's pay in, pay out, very, very simple. The other transfer type is a forward contract. Again, some people may be familiar with this. It's certainly not something that you'll ever be made available to you on the high street, nor will you find it on some of the online platforms. But it's a buy now, pay later type transfer. So it allows a customer to purchase a sum of euros and have them made available on a specific date in the future. And what that means is the exchange rate that you buy at is held until the funds are available, which in a world where the currency markets move every second, that's a very, very powerful tool for budgeting. So it allows a customer in a property situation to speak to a currency trader, confirm what their budget is in euros, and identify that they need those euros perhaps in the month of September. And between now and the month of September, they'd like to make sure that the exchange rate doesn't get any worse. So we'll buy the funds that you need, hold them in our account until September, and then you'll transfer your funds over to us to release the euros. And to do that, you need to pay over roughly between a 5 and 10% deposit. So very, very similar to, as I said, a buy now, pay later scheme that you'd have with a retail or financial institution. So it's a really, really fantastic tool for property, and it gives you that peace of mind that you need when you're transacting over a slightly longer time period, like 3 to 5 months.
Okay, now we've had a question from Barack, who I believe is in the States, because he's saying that the dollar to euro rate is almost equal, and they're coming over to the Coimbra district to buy a property in March or April of next year. So when should they use you to make sure they don't lose out? The dollar's really, really strong at the moment, isn't it? So they want to hold on to that. Is it too early if they're coming out in March or April?
Really good question. So yeah, a bit of background. There's been a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is a very, very big driver of US dollar strength. And you're quite right, the exchange rates from US dollars to euros are favourable. That's only at this point in time. We have no idea where that's going to be in March next year. So it's a very, very good idea to speak to us about your options. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You may already have a euro bank account set up, and in that case, we would take you through a consultation session to say, if you're 100% committed to buying a property in Portugal and you know roughly what your budgets are and you have a euro bank account, the longer you hold on to the dollars, the more risk you have that the exchange rates worsen and your euro budget diminishes. So we would always recommend to a customer that they look at the least risky option. And that could either be done through a forward contract where we buy the euros for you now and deliver them to you in March, or you do a same-day transfer and have those euros parked in a euro bank account ready for you in March, and then you're going to the negotiating table with an agent or a lawyer with a cash sum in euros that won't change.
Okay, great. Now, another question: where do you send the money? Where do you send the money in Portugal? Do I need a bank account, or can I send it to my solicitor?
Another good question. So both. When a currency transfer is set up, the trading team will ask you where you want the funds to be sent. It doesn't have to be sent to the same place. If you bought 50,000 euros, 25,000 could be sent to the lawyer. 25,000 could also be sent to your own personal account. It really doesn't matter. So you've got complete flexibility. Some customers may not have a euro bank account set up at that point in time when a transaction goes through. And what they'll do is they'll ask us to hold it. So we have a client account, and we can hold those euros there for a short period of time whilst the customer opens up a bank account, either in Portugal or perhaps a euro bank account in the UK to park them. So very, very flexible on where the funds are sent to and in what order.
Okay. Now I'm going to bring in other people in a second. Just one more question before I move on to Fiona. Why would a customer choose Smart Currency Exchange instead of their high street bank they've been using for 40 years, or one of the options like TransferWise? Sorry, they're not TransferWise. Wise. Yeah.
For us, we really, really pride ourselves on the telephone service. A lot of companies, the banks have always done this. They push people online as much as they can. Try and self-serve, figure it out yourself. If you get stuck, you'll end up on hold, and you'll be speaking to a robot, trying to figure out what to do. With us, we've deliberately taken a step away from that, and we really value the telephone service that we give to our customers. So every new client, whether you're transferring 1,000 euros or you're transferring 1 million, you will have a dedicated account manager who will be there on the phone to help you with anything that you need help with, provide you with guidance, try and help you understand the Portuguese banking system as best you can so that you're prepared. And And it's that level of service that we found over the last few years has really diminished with our competitors, even more so with the banks. The banks really, they treat customers as rounding errors on a spreadsheet. They don't have the ability to serve you to the point that you need to be served. And that's exactly why we started this business back in 2004, to really sit down with every customer and understand, as you mentioned at the beginning, that buying a property in Portugal is, for a lot of people, a dream come true. And that's a really exciting part for us to be involved in. And unfortunately, the currency element always seems to be last on the list of people's sort of things to think about. So we want to change that and make sure that from the outset, if you're buying a property, you've got a really robust currency strategy in place. And if there was to be a huge exchange rate fluctuation, which you can never rule out, you're prepared, and it won't have an adverse impact on your plans.
Great. Okay, and you are, I believe, UK based and authorised by the UK regulator, the FCA.
Correct. Yeah. So we're UK based, headquarters in Hammersmith. We have got operations across Europe as well, but all of our currency team who speak to customers are based in London. And yes, we've got our full FCA authorization. You can look that up online afterwards.
Excellent. Right. Now, moving on to some properties. Fiona from Luxembourg Christie's, famous name. Could you please, Fiona, give us a little summary as to who you are and how Luxembourg can help our viewers?
Of course, yeah. So I'm Fiona. It's good to see you all there today. I've lived in Portugal now for about 14 years altogether. So this time I've been here for 5 years. Been very lucky and travelled around, but I've always been working in real estate and property connected business. And something about the Algarve just keeps bringing me back. So I'm very settled here now. With Brexit happening, I became a resident of Portugal, and I don't see myself leaving here anytime soon. With regards to Christie's, as you say, a big name. We're a worldwide company. Here in Portugal, we have 2 offices. So up in Porto, that's our head office, and then down here in the Algarve, we have a central Algarve office, and we're just in the process of opening in the Western Algarve.
Okay, great. Now, we always get this question first. What's the market like at the moment? Are there deals to be done, or are they like everywhere? Lots of places in the world shooting up, or what's happening in the property market in Portugal?
It has really been a roller coaster few years. I think right from the Brexit vote that began to change things for us here. The pandemic certainly added to those changes. So I think it's been quite difficult for people overseas to keep up with these changes and the new regulations and how things affect them after Brexit and what the travel rules are to come over here to view properties with COVID. So I think now we're sort of approaching a point of clarity where things have stabilized a little bit. There are some changes on the ability to rent your property out short term, which are being brought in at the moment, but I don't really see that will affect things. It's busier than I've ever known it, and so a correctly priced property will usually sell within a week. So it's certainly changed how we work, because we used to be able to plan ahead. You'd have somebody in the UK thinking, I'll come over in 2 or 3 months, I'll get everything ready, and then we'll look at that house. Where now I think rather than looking at particular properties before you come, it's better to have an idea of the kind of thing you're looking for. And then in the week or so before a visit, that's when I'll put everything together for you. So normally I would do, depending if somebody, for example, if somebody's on their very first trip to the Algarve, and they're not sure which area they want to be in, usually I would work with that, and I would schedule a day in the west, a day in central Algarve, and a day in eastern Algarve, and sort of show not just the properties, but also the different kinds of towns and villages, how life would be if you were here, what kind of thing. So I base it more now on what people like to do in their spare time, whether they're looking to retire here or put their children through school here. And so there's a lot more. It's a lot more than just the house. For me, it's about matching the client with the lifestyle, and from that, I'll find the property for them.
Great. Okay. And now, so you can sell a house in a week, but how long does it take to buy one? Would you say typical time scale for completion from saying, yeah, we want it to moving in?
I think it's key. The first thing is to remove a property from the market, and so when you do find the right thing, you have to be prepared to stop viewings on it. I was at a property about a month ago with clients, and there were 2 other agents with their clients waiting outside to come in. So that's the key part to bear in mind, that houses are selling in a day. So we don't really, unfortunately, have time to wait a couple of weeks while people make a decision. If they do, it can end up meaning that we start the search again. So you would pay a €5,000 reservation deposit just to stop viewings, while your lawyer would then work out all of the documentation and the terms for a promissory agreement, which is the initial agreement. And we'd normally look to have that done within 2 weeks after the reservation. But then after that 2 weeks, it really does depend on the buyer and the seller. So the lawyers between them will come to an agreement that suits both parties, So for example, at this time of year, quite a lot of sellers, they've already rented their properties out for the summer. And so with that in mind, they don't want to have to be refunding everybody that they've rented it out to. So usually Joanna would come up with a way where the clients would close at the end of the rental season. But equally, I get people that need to move quickly, and we can do that too. I would say the average is about 2 months, but it can be less, it can be more, It really does depend.
We've had a question from Barbara asking if you do long-term rentals as well, if they're undecided at the moment about buying.
No, I mean, I can recommend companies that do rentals, but long-term rentals just really are almost impossible to get. You could get a 6-month rental over the winter period, but people would tend not to rent out their properties during the summer on a long-term let.
Okay. Now moving on to a couple of the sort of the practicalities. Buying costs. So if I've got €500,000 to spend, or how much of that is going to have to go on buying costs?
So when it comes to buying costs, there are 2 main taxes when somebody is buying a property. So the first one is the stamp duty, which is 0.8%. The second one is transfer tax. That's more, and it's on a very complicated sliding scale. So generally, that's the lawyer that would help you with that. But I would say if you were to budget around about 9%, then that should cover all of your purchase costs and fees to do with that. But it is quite straightforward here. There aren't lots and lots of costs. I used to work in Budapest in Hungary, and there were all kinds of things that would pile onto the bill at the end. But here it is quite straightforward. So just those 2 charges, plus your lawyer and notary fees.
Great. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Now, just thinking about that 5,000 reservation deposit, Alistair, is that something that we should? Because, like you say, you tend to think, oh, okay, we're going to buy a property, and it's going to cost this amount of money. But presumably, we should be talking to you before we go on the trip, so that we're ready for that initial deposit.
Yeah, it's interesting because we I look after the partnerships team, and we see lots of follow-ups with clients where they're speaking to a currency trader, and they're already having that discussion, saying, look, I'm due out on a trip in May or June, and they're starting to think about what their currency payments could look like, because even on €10,000, although it might seem like a relatively small payment compared to the overall property, it can still add up if you're not prepared. Or even worse, actually, if you do go out there and you need to get an offer in quickly, if you haven't got that set up already, it can. Yeah, that's just how things work. It can be a pain to get it set up, as quickly as possible. So having everything prepared, opening an account with us is really, really easy. It's free of charge. There's no obligation to ever use the account. And if you have a UK address, you're on the electoral roll, you'll normally go straight through the application process without speaking to anyone. So it's really easy. And the currency traders can at least be prepared to speak to you when you're out there, or when you come back to say, how was the viewing trip? Where are you at with your offers? That kind of activity. And payments out to Portugal, they'll be there. If you set it up in the morning, it'll either be there same day or next day. So it's very, very quick.
Great. Okay. Now back to Fiona. So let's assume I actually flew back from Portugal on Tuesday. I was in Madeira, and absolutely lovely it was too, I can tell you. However, let's assume I'm actually going the other way, and I'm coming out to Portugal. I'm coming out to the Algarve to look at property. When is a good time, firstly of year, and secondly of the week, to come and do a viewing trip?
I think so. So there are two different kinds. You have the resale properties, which are somebody that's selling on and either going back to the UK or upgrading to something bigger. But properties like that are rented out during the summer. So the 12 weeks during the peak season, they're rented out. And when somebody's in there on their holidays, we cannot access a property like that. So if you come here in August, for example, properties that we'd be able to show you would either be quite undesirable, so something like a ruin perhaps that needs a lot of work that can't be lived in at the moment, or something that's off plan, that's under construction, so it's not rented out. So I would always say to people, bear in mind that after the summer, quite a lot of people put properties on the market, and so the end of September, October, these are really great times to come over, because you sort of have that flurry of people that would like to sell the house by Christmas, and the heat of the sun has gone, because going from property to coffee shop to property when it's 35 degrees out there, that can also be a little bit tiring too. So I think for comfort and availability and just general enjoyment of a viewing trip, it should be sort of, either before mid-July or after mid-September at the moment. And likewise, a lot of places are closed here on the weekends. We don't, so developers will close. So those off-plan developments, there won't be anybody to show you around or do a presentation on a Saturday or a Sunday. Lawyers, their offices are going to be closed on Sundays as well. So we'll end up with phone calls or hurrying around. So I'd say an ideal viewing trip is 4 days, midweek. The flight prices tend to be cheaper then anyway, as are the hotels. So it does sort of just fit in. It's a working trip rather than a weekend away, if that makes sense.
Lovely. Okay. Now, one last question before we move on to Joanna, and that is, what is the protocol for making offers on properties? Is it common practice like in the UK? Do you offer a bit under, or I guess not in today's market?
I would say that I've certainly noticed since Christmas this year that my job, I don't represent any sellers, so my job is always working with a buyer, and I'll work for them, and so I'll guide and advise. If I feel a property is overpriced, I'll let them know that, and I'll explain why. I will always make an offer of something. From a developer, there is usually no movement at all in the price. However, sometimes I can negotiate something like a washer dryer or a wine fridge, which comes in handy in the summer, or so my goal is always to get the best deal and to not have somebody paying over market value for a property. But at the same time, if 4 different parties out there are willing to pay the asking price, then I would say that's at market value. And that's the kind of situations that I'm having at the moment, where I'm quite literally having to go into battle for clients. as Joanna will know, we shared a client about a month ago, and it really was a big fight to get them the house that they wanted, because so many people wanted that house. And so, yes, but I will, every property is different and every circumstance is different too. So, you know, if I'm aware of a reason why somebody may negotiate, then I'll absolutely make the best of that and get the best price.
Brilliant. Okay. Yeah, I'm talking about, I mean, I can understand why people fall in love with a particular house. That's one thing I noticed, that the Portuguese just build a great house, don't they? There's all the different, you know, they're modern, and yet they're well designed, and they're not just thrown up. They're just beautifully done, and you're buying something really special, I think, in a house in Portugal.
Yes, I think, you know, that's the amazing part of my job, is that when I take somebody into the right property for them, they know it. And so there's, you know, then my job is to get that house for them. It's not to drag people around and push them into something that they weren't quite sure about or didn't really want. You know, they know, they get the feeling as soon as we get out of the car at a property, they'll know. And I've had it twice this year where it was the very first house that I showed on people's very first day in Portugal. And so, but you know, when you know, you know, and that is the great thing about the Algarve, that so many people end up here and living that dream.
Okay, right. Thanks, Fiona. I'm sure we'll have questions for you. They're coming in. Now, Joanna Mestre, tell us a little bit about MAT Law and what you do and what you specialize in.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. First, thank you for the invitation, and also for finding the time for being here on a Thursday evening, you know, listening about buying property in Portugal. As you already said, Chris, I'm a Portuguese solicitor or a lawyer. Actually, in Portugal, lawyers are solicitors, so we have both. The wording is sometimes confused. I'm a Portuguese lawyer. I'm a managing partner at a firm that we call a boutique, a firm that is specialized and focused in real estate investment in Portugal. Also, we provide all the services and we assist clients that are normally investors in real estate. So they usually tend to come to us to buy a property here, and many clients then have the need to also have assistance with relocation and immigration law, as well as taxation on their property, and also personal income if they decide to move to Portugal. So what the variety of services is large, I would say. I didn't want to waste the time explaining everything we can assist, but our role is really to be our client's support in Portugal. So anything a client needs, of course, that has a legal implication, we will assist. And if we cannot assist, we will, of course, try to find someone to be able to do. Bearing in mind that many of our clients are abroad, are investors with second holiday homes in Portugal, or just carrying out investment for in a property to capitalize, to have their guests on a long or short-term rental schemes. I will, of course, it's really important to put on our clients' shoes. You know, if I was investing abroad, I would really like to have someone that is there to support me, to guide me through also the system, because every country is different, and Portugal also, and the Portuguese authorities are also difficult to deal many times. So there are no irrelevant problems. All clients' problems are important, whether it's a problem with the electricity supplier to 4 or 10 million investments. So we try as much as possible, and we best to provide a good client service. So I hope.
Great.
I hope.
Okay. Now, a question has come in. it's coming to my head actually, rather than coming. Do you, if you're looking to get a visa for Portugal, is it better to buy the property and then get the visa, or get the visa first and then get the property? What would you suggest? Because you know, you don't want to buy a house and find that you only live in it for 90 days in every community.
Absolutely, Chris. That's a very good question. When a client thinks of getting a visa, it's because, of course, is planning on moving permanently to Portugal. First, the need of getting a visa has to be assessed as well. You know, many clients, especially after Brexit, come to us saying, "Well, I would like to be able to spend, a long holiday in Portugal." Actually, they can with their British passports. They are not obliged to have a visa. So it's really important to separate, the willing to visit Portugal and enjoying of a property here as a tourist, or relocating to Portugal and become a Portuguese resident. Answering your question directly, the accommodation is one of the key elements of a visa application. So if a client finds a property and is actually the owner of a property, the client can use that property and the title deeds to prove that already has an accommodation in Portugal in the view of becoming Portuguese resident. Of course, there are alternatives. Many clients also, as Fiona was explaining, don't have yet a clarity on the place in Portugal where they want to live. So finding, for example, a 6-month rental, it's possible. 6 months is not enough for a residence visa, because at least 1 year is required to, someone willing to be a resident. Otherwise, it can be just a tourist in Portugal. But having a long-term lease can also be an alternative to buying a property. That may, however, become a bit of a nightmare, because the leases are also more unpredictable. You may have to switch place. So it is indeed very, very common, Chris, to have clients who first buy a property as a second holiday or for investment, and end up using that property to submit and to instruct their visa applications. So it depends a lot on the client's experience of the country as well. If we are talking about a person that already knows Portugal, is 100% sure of where he's going to live, maybe it's very much easier and straightforward going and buying a property.
Mute myself. Okay, so what now? Fiona mentioned the buying costs, but she said, but then you have to pay your lawyer on top. So how much is it going to cost? With the legal process is going to cost?
The legal fees on the real estate markets are quite standard. It's very common, I think, as in the UK, to have a flat fee, a percentage over the total price agreed for the transaction. That usually varies between 0.5 and 2.5%. Of course, you will understand, and all our viewers will understand, that charging 1% of 4 million transaction, it's not the same as charging 1% of 200,000. So legal fees, what are they paying? What are you pay? What is the client paying when pays a solicitor? Not only the legal, the time invested in the client's process, also the responsibility. You will understand that signing off a title deed for a 4 million investment, it's not the same as a 200,000. So the responsibility and also the detail attention is very important, very much dependent on the complexity of the investment. There are other aspects that also have impact on the legal fee proposal, and I'm very I will be pleased to go in more detail if a viewer wants to ask on that. For example, if there is a purchase combined with financing in Portugal, our role will not be only on the property purchase side, but also on the financing side. We will be signing up all the bank mortgage documentation and deeds for the clients. Okay, if the client is deciding to buy a property not in the client's individual name but through a limited liability company, either a company that already exists abroad or in Portugal, or the company that the client asks us to set up and incorporate. Of course, the legal work required in that case, it's also different and more complex than just a simple cash purchase in a client's individual name. But on average, in summary, 0.5 to 2.5%, and tends to be a flat fee. Okay, it is very important to have the predictability of costs, also to budget the full transaction costs and bear those costs in mind when hiring exchange services, for example.
Yeah, actually, that was a question, which was, do you charge an hourly rate or flat rate? So it's a flat rate. It's a percentage based on the cost of property. Right.
Exactly.
Okay. Now we've had it's a big question. She said it very succinctly, but it's a big question. Coming from the UK, no longer in the EU, does this cause difficulties in residency? I think the short answer is yes, but perhaps you can give a few options for us who want to move to Portugal. And of course, this is going to apply to the same rules will now apply to American and Canadian and other retirees there as well. So if you could take us through your basic options.
Mm-hmm. In terms of a residency,
yes.
If I understood correctly, getting residency in Portugal now after Brexit.
Yes, or as a non-EU citizen.
As a non-EU, exactly, absolutely. That is the first distinction to do. Is if you are a national from a country outside EU, your life will be a bit more complicated. For EU citizens, you are talking about simple registrations before the local councils. If you are coming from outside the EU, you'll have to submit a residence visa application before the Portuguese embassy in the country of origin. So if you are in the UK, it will be one of the Portuguese embassies in the UK. There are at least two. If you are in the US, the same, Canada, and so on, China as well. So then the visa options, they will vary depending on what is the purpose of the residency in Portugal. If we are talking about someone willing to work in Portugal, if we are talking about someone that are willing to retire in Portugal, or although not officially retired in the retirement age, someone that has enough income, for example, rental income or a pension income that allows that person to live in Portugal and have means of subsistence in Portugal, so without needing state support. Basically, this is the key factor that will impact the residence visa. The most common visas after Brexit, applying also to British nationals, are the D7 visa, which is a type of visa granted or available for people, as I was explaining, with passive income. We'll say, what is this type of income? Rental income from properties, interest, dividends from financial investments, and of course, pension income from private or public state pension. Okay, these people with this type of income, and provided that proof of course, this income is available in a bank account with bank statements showing, of course, enough liquidity. People with this sort of income can apply for a D7. The other very common and interesting visa is a so-called golden visa. It is a visa. The expression golden visa is purely a marketing expression. There is no gold in there, but it's an investment permit, a visa granted for investment purposes. But there are significant differences between this golden visa and a standard V7 visa. First of all, the costs. A golden visa is very expensive. We are talking about approximately €6,000 only in charges to the Portuguese government, okay, per person, per application. These are reduced to 50% when we're talking about children, who of course are not the investors, but are relatives of the main investor. But if we are talking about a family, all the family applying for a golden visa, the costs can go up to 20 to 50,000 euro. However, the golden visa has some significant flexibility in terms of effective staying in the country. That is why a visa granted for investors. What does the government understand about this? The minimum period required to maintain the right to be a resident under a golden visa is very little. We are talking about 1 week in the first year and 2 weeks in the following year. So it's a holiday. In fact, you are a resident without being a resident, or without actually having to be a resident. A standard visa like a V7, of course, you will not want to have a visa to become a Portuguese resident like a V7 if you don't plan to effectively stay in the country. If you don't plan to become a resident in Portugal and live here at least 6 to 8 months per year. Of course, you can travel, you can fly, but the focus is really on relocating to Portugal rather than just investing in Portugal and using that investment to have a Portuguese permit that allows you to travel easily to the country. So these are the main differences. Of course, there are also implications in terms of taxation, because if a person is in Portugal for 2 weeks, that person can demonstrate that it's not a resident, fiscally resident in Portugal. But if a person has a residence permit that requires that person to stay in the country for the majority of the year, the fiscal year, then it's very difficult to prove that I am not a fiscal resident in Portugal, although I am a resident. So residency and relocation have two main key aspects that anyone should bear in mind. It's the immigration law side, so the visa that we were talking about, the V7, how will I become legally a resident in Portugal, and also the tax implications, because internationally, and the common practice, according to the international rules of taxation, is that a country has tax power according to the residency. So if you move your residency to Portugal, well, that will have tax implications, okay? There are also incentives on that. It's something we can talk about later on if there are questions. But it is really a consequence that it's not possible to avoid.
Great. Okay. Now, I'm still thinking about this this viewing trip that I'm going to come on. So just back to Fiona a second. We've had a question about the NIF. You might want to explain what that is. But could you tell me what I should be bringing with me? What paperwork? What anything else I should bring if I'm coming on a viewing trip?
Yes. So really, you need obviously you'll have your passports with you, but you're going to need proof of address. You will need your if you're from the UK, you now need to bring your national insurance number, which is a new thing. And that's for opening a bank account. I don't think you need that, Joanna. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you'd need that on your fiscal number, which is your NIF. So
just that's the I'm sure all all of our viewers have reached an age where they will remember their UK national insurance number. But
I
you're
have no
talking
idea
about
what it is.
you're talking about the Portuguese one, yes?
No, I'm talking about the UK one.
Oh, okay, right, sure. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So since Brexit finalised, you now need to. The only time I've come across needing it is in the bank when opening a bank account with clients, but it definitely surprises everybody because yes, people generally don't know where that is. Especially the last client that came into that problem had been a farmer. So he'd never really used it, and he found it on his pension documentation in the end. But it was funny trying to get his wife back in the UK. She was going through every single piece of paper in the office while we were at the bank. But so for your NIF number, you're going to need proof of where you live, and so that's usually a household bill, a bank statement. Not really for the amount in your bank, but just so that again, there's another proof of you are who you say you are. Normally,
sorry, I keep interrupting. Do you if someone's going to come on and look at your properties and put down a deposit, do you need some sort of proof of that they can afford it, that not or not?
No, I mean, I think it's assumed that, we'll discuss budget beforehand,
Yes.
and usually involve Smart as well with that to help out with setting the budget in euros, because what people have in sterling is one thing, but the euro amount is constantly moving, so it's good for people to feel comfortable that they know how much they have to spend. But so no, they don't need to prove to me. If we're going to discuss mortgages as well, so we can usually help clients obtain mortgages through our offices. So we'll run an application through several different banks for clients, depending on their status and their situation. And I'd say, at the moment, if somebody was looking to finance, banks are lending up to 70% of the purchase price to foreigners. So that means somebody coming over here would need 30% of the property price plus the buying costs. You can't mortgage the buying costs over here. So they'll need their deposit and their costs, and then it takes at the moment about 6 weeks to run a mortgage application through. So again, we'd make Joanna aware that the client's applying for a mortgage when she's doing her side of things, so that we know that we're setting the closing and the final deed to be within the time frame for a mortgage. And then just one final thing on the fiscal number. So now British passport holders are classified as third country passport holders here. So that means that they must have a tax representative in Portugal. So whereas before you could get your fiscal number for under 20 euros by just strolling into the council offices, COVID means that you can't really go into the offices anymore. So it needs to be applied for by either a lawyer or an accountant. But once you've done that, and once you've obtained the number, you will have an annual cost for that fiscal representative. So normally I would recommend we leave it as late as possible. You don't need a fiscal number a year before your viewing trip. We do that at the same time where you're buying the house. So normally with a power of attorney, Joanna would be able to take care of the deposit and all of the contracts, and at the same time she would get your fiscal number for you without us having to stand in a queue at the council office waiting to get pieces of paper stamped.
Thinking about that, avoiding standing in a queue in Portugal, can you, Joanna, do the transaction without us being not the transaction, but the process without us coming down? I don't know why you wouldn't want to go to Portugal, but can you do it without the client coming over to sign bits of document?
Yes, Chris, it's very, very common. And as you can imagine, during COVID, with all the travel restrictions, there were a lot of WhatsApp viewings that Fiona carried out properties. And on the lawyers and legal side, of course, many clients granting powers of attorney to engage solicitors in Portugal that were granted in their home countries. So, of course, the wording is slightly different. We, the Portuguese solicitors, will prepare and draft the powers of attorney being sure that the wording will then be accepted by the public authorities and also the notaries and everyone involved in the process. But then the document will be signed, notarized, and apostilled by the Foreign Office in the UK or US or wherever the client is, and sent to Portugal by a safe courier service. We also need to bear in mind that national post services in Portugal especially are not working so efficiently. So it is possible to have a power of attorney granted abroad and ready to be used in Portugal in 1 week, depending, of course, on the functioning in the home country. But it is possible to do everything without the client coming to Portugal, actually, even to view the property.
Are you still doing video walkthroughs and things like that, Fiona? Has that become sort of a common thing, especially for our viewers from the US? Can you walk around a property with your camera?
I can. People get to see my feet a lot. I would say there's no substitute for actually going into the property and feeling it. But at the same time, I do understand when people can't get here. I'm doing a video viewing on Wednesday for some Australian clients. So yes, I can do it, but I really recommend people coming here because, you know, I can send lots and lots of photographs and I can describe places, but until you're standing there, you don't really feel what you need.
We touched on ongoing expenses, and I wanted to, and including things like pensions. I guess that's something that you need to think about with currencies in mind, because I mean, I've been in this business a long time, and I remember there was an awful lot of problems when the exchange rate suddenly went down to 110, and people hadn't budgeted on their pensions for that kind of decrease in the exchange rate. So, Alistair, what do you do for people who need to have regular payments going backwards and forwards?
So regular payments. Again, they are equally exposed to currency risk as a big transaction, especially when you look at maybe the total volume that you transfer over a year. We've had plenty of clients come to us maybe at the end of the year and said, had I fixed a rate or taken some action at the beginning of the year, it would have really benefited me. So it's really important that we look at the smaller repeat payments. Customers tend to fall into two camps with us. They'll either set up effectively a standing order. So they'll set up £1,500, which comes into the smart currency account every month. We'll convert it to euros at the prevailing exchange rate and send it off to Portugal, which is fine. If the exchange rates are improving every month, you'll get a little bit more euros each month. But if they start to decline, you'll be in a position where your potentially your monthly living costs are diminishing each month. So the other option is that you look at doing a fixed rate regular transfer. So, for example, to make it nice and easy, let's say you needed €1,000 in your Portuguese account every month. Effectively, we would buy 12,000 euros for you at today's exchange rate, and we would split them up into 12 equal payments of 1,000 euros. And you would then set up a standing order on the 27th of each month to transfer £800, and that will then release your 1,000 euros. So for a full 12 months, you've got an exact amount of euros that you can take advantage of each month. Again, it really just depends on the client situation and what their risk appetite is. But yeah, we can take care of the regular transfers as well.
What happens if I've set up a forward contract and suddenly the exchange rate improves? Well, no. Let's take a more realistic scenario. Let's assume that I've bought a property. I've agreed a forward contract, and then the sale falls through. What happens to that contract?
It's a very, very good question. So, put simply, the forward contract is a legally binding contract. So the euros have been purchased for you. They are effectively sat in a bank account, gathering dust, waiting for you to settle it. So, because you've paid a deposit to hold the euros, you've got a few different options. You could ask the currency trader to price selling the euros back to pounds, and that will create a material cost for you. Or what happens to a lot of customers is the property might fall through. They'll say to us, "This isn't the end of my property buying journey. I'm going back to look at more properties next week." We might extend the date of when their forward contract was due to be realised. So, for example, they might say, "I need an extra month to settle the contract," and we can arrange that for the customer without them having to face any any kind of cost or charges. So it's very unlikely that a client has a property fall through and that's the end of their Portuguese dream. There's often a backup solution, or we extend the transfer. So yes, there's an outcome. It's unavoidable if the property falls through, but as long as you're planning to purchase a property, there's nothing stopping you keeping the forward contract in place and playing around with the dates.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Now we've had a lot of people saying we will get the full contact details of the panel, won't we? And yes, you can. We will certainly do that. We will make sure that everyone who is here or is watching on demand can get in contact with our panelists. Now, what new questions have we had in? I'm just flicking through them. Is there anything that anybody sort of wants to round off with? Joanna first. Is there anything that you would just sort of to round off with that people should be aware of when buying a property in Portugal this summer? Anything that we might have left out?
I would maybe, Chris, just highlight some of important aspects that I don't know if are the same in the UK and abroad, of course, in our viewers' jurisdictions. But trying to go very briefly through the process. As Fiona said, it's very common to take the property out of the market, to pay an initial reservation, but then the handshake and the reservation will be followed by the signing of a promissory agreement. It's a contrato de promessa. This promissory requires the buying party, and because our viewers are mainly potential buyers, dreamers about Portuguese property, the buying party shall pay a deposit, and this deposit is normally non-refundable in case completion. In case the buying party is not able to complete for any circumstances. Of course, parties can have a lot of autonomy to rule which circumstances are will grant a right to a deposit refund. But as common practice and according to the Portuguese civil law, this deposit is non-refundable. So we are normally talking about an amount varying from 10 to 30% in a standard property purchase of the percentage over the total price agreed. So it's really important to do the homework, as to be sure that legal due diligence is carried out before doing this, taking this compromise of buying the property and paying a deposit, a large deposit, and also being sure that financing is guaranteed for that transaction, either through a combination with a mortgage and equity and private savings, as well as with the exchange fluctuations. So surprises along the line may be very difficult. And I would like to call the attention for the fact that many clients usually come to us are willing to sign a promissory agreement and secure a property in Portugal while expecting a property to be sold abroad in their home countries. So they say, no, I will have enough funds because I'm selling my property in the UK or in the US, and I will be using the sale funds to finance the purchase. If anything goes wrong with the sale, with the sale of the property that will be used to finance the transaction, it is then important to renegotiate. And most of all, please keep your solicitors informed of how you are financing. Don't tell them that, no, I have cash because I am in the process of selling, and then 2 weeks before the completion deadline, oh, Joanna, I'm sorry, I haven't yet contracts haven't been exchanged yet in the UK and I don't have the money. So then we have, as we say, the baby in the hands, and we need to sort a solution to avoid the client losing that deposit that is non-refundable. Okay. In terms of timelines, yes. So go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say we run out of time. Actually, in fact, we've run over by a minute. And where Fiona is, there's a local public holiday, which is a splendid idea. So I know that Fiona wants to go out and enjoy the Portuguese sunshine. So, well, look, thank you for all that fantastic information. I think we've had an hour of really in-depth, knowledgeable stuff, and I think, and I want to thank you all for doing that. Just to round off to say,
can I just quickly say one thing, because I've answered a few questions here, but so I don't have anybody's contact details yet. I will be getting them next week. If it's urgent or you want to talk to me tomorrow, please, when you get your email, you'll see my details. You'll be able to contact me then. So,
yeah, absolutely.
If someone's contacted me, then I can reply. But thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Joanna and Alistair as well, and thank you to all our viewers for watching this session, and we wish you all the best in your move or your property purchase in Portugal. We do have lots of other resources available to help on your buying journey at the Your Overseas Home website or the Property Guides website. Do look at the Property Guides /Portugal website, and you've got tons of information there. So thank you again, and happy property hunting. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.